Welcome to All Docs on Deck, where we explore wellness, wealth, and womanhood through real conversations with women doctors across the diaspora. Another episode starts now. Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to another episode of All Docs on Deck. It has been an amazing journey so far, and this episode will be no different because we have our girlfriend, the one and only, all the way from South America, Guyana, Dr. Karen Boyle.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for
Thank you
being
for
here.
answering the call. Exactly. Karen Gordon-Boyle is a prominent Guyanese medical doctor and public health specialist. She served as Deputy Chief Medical Officer in Guyana's Ministry of Public Health, where she was a key voice during the early COVID-19 response, updating the public, pushing testing training, and reassuring folks about vaccines. She's got strong credentials, trained at Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health, worked with USAID's GARD project on HIV/AIDS, and has lectured at the University of Guyana. She's also been involved in CARICOM, health coordination, and WHO, World Health Organization, related roles. Right now, she's president of the Rotary Club of Saarbrück. I hope I said that right, girlfriend.
Correct,
And
correct.
awesome. And just organized the Men's Wellness Symposium 2025, an event explicitly tackling men's health, mental wellness, domestic violence, and building stronger men, stronger families, stronger Guyana. That's awesome. We're going to make sure our hubbies tune into that one. She described it as a movement to give men a safe space to reflect and change, and that is so important. She's been recognized as one of Guyana's phenomenal women for her public health work, especially reaching marginalized communities. From our earlier chat, this lines up perfectly. She's one of the people actively trying to break the cycle of violence by working with men directly, not just punishing or ignoring the root causes. And so she is a solid contributor to Guyana's health scene. Wow. And we got the joy, the honor, and the privilege of having you here with us tonight. Welcome, welcome. And
Wow.
thank you again, girlfriend, for all of the work that you do. That is just amazing, amazing.
Noma, the privilege is mine, and I couldn't refuse the opportunity to share the platform and possibly reach other women with
Yes,
this message. So thank you for the opportunity.
absolutely.
Wow. I just have to applaud you even before we dive in of just all of the work. You hit on every tenet of healthcare, public health, the men and the women, domestic violence, like all of it. So it's not an easy job but you are doing it, and you are doing it as a woman of color. And so we are just so proud, so proud of you.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you,
So
guys.
I'm always
absolutely.
amazed at how we get connected. So you're all the way in South America,
Yes,
and I'm in North America, and Dr. K is in the
yes,
Caribbean. So tell
yes.
me, where did this connection come from? When did you meet? What's your girlfriend story?
Ooh, you go ahead, Dr. K. How did we meet?
Well, it's again, girls connecting girlfriends,
Yes,
Carlotta, she's a Rotarian in my club.
yes.
And she just happened to be casually mentioning that she was going to Egypt with a group of
Mm-hmm.
girlfriends. Now, she didn't know this, but since I was a teenager, I dreamt of going to Egypt. It was something I always wanted to do.
Yes.
So I was about to say she didn't have to ask me twice, but she didn't even actually ask me. I
You
invited
offered?
myself. I told her I am coming, and she
I
didn't
love
refuse.
it.
I invited myself, and I must say, it was an amazing, amazing trip. I met so
Oh,
many other really wonderful,
yes.
beautiful women. It was lovely.
So, when we're planning our retreats, we usually have a chat together where everybody gets to introduce themselves and we start connecting before we leave. And so Dr. K had her introduction of how many countries have you been to? I was just like, oh my goodness, these are life goals. How many?
Uh-oh.
It was, I'm about 58, I think, something like that.
Yes. And then we add Egypt to that, and you've been traveling. So now we're well into the 60s, right? Of
I love to
countries.
travel. That's one of my ways actually of renewing myself. That's one of my
Yes,
Yes.
yes. It's a mental health
traveling.
strategy for real.
Right,
Probably an
right,
expensive one, but it
right.
works.
I know, right? But it is so worth it because
Wow.
it expands the mind and gets you out of, your environment, which with the
Exactly.
work
Mhm.
that you do, and I get it because we do domestic violence work. That's actually how I met Carlotta as well. It can be so heavy. And so it's necessary to be able to step out of our environment to take care of ourselves sometimes. And so I want to dive into that. But before we do, I want the audience to know a little bit about you before you were Dr. Karen. So who was that girl? Who were you before you were Dr. Karen? Tell us about her.
Well, I became a doctor pretty young, you know. I was 25 when I became Dr. Karen. And
Wow.
so before that
Wow.
was just medical school and high school. In medical school, apart from studying, well, I was into Russian folk dancing because I was in Russia for 7 years. That's where I did my first degree,
Oh,
my medical degree. So I love to dance. So I learned
yeah.
Russian folk dancing, and I was the female vocalist in a reggae band as well. So
Look
maybe
at
Wait,
this.
wait,
part,
wait.
that's a part. Yeah.
I'm raising my hand. I have questions. So
Yes.
first, do you speak Russian?
So the answer to that is I left Russia in 1990. I
Yeah.
went back once in 2018, and there's no one to practice Russian with here. So the
Right.
answer is I understand it completely, but when
Yes.
it's time to speak, I'm much slower. I was fluent when I left Russia,
Wow.
but because of the years and lack of practice, yeah, I've forgotten a lot of it. I hear it, I understand it, but to
Yes.
speak now, I have to sit and think and remember and recall. So not as fluent as I should be.
That is so
So
cool
the
though.
point I was making with that is Russian is not an easy language
Right.
to
Oh
learn.
no.
There
It
are
took
no,
me a
like with
year.
Spanish, like at least the alphabet is the same, but
Right.
it's so
Totally
different. So
different.
already you have just given us a glimpse into your
Your
brain
brain.
and your
Exactly.
brilliance.
No, we took a whole year to learn the language, but remember you're immersed in the culture.
Yes.
So to
Yes.
survive, to go into the shop and buy something, so you learn very quickly, yeah.
I'm your student
I
now.
know, right? Me too. So you know the
Student of
dancer
life,
in me.
student of life, of travel, all the things. So
Right,
we're definitely gonna
exactly. Imagine, and we had to wait all until till the podcast for me to learn that she's a dancer and was a singer too. I'm just like, what? You see?
I'm your
So you were an artist before you became a doctor. So dancer,
I think I'm
singer.
a natural artist at heart.
Yes.
In
Wow.
fact, when I was in sixth form and I had to, well, when I finished fifth form and I had to choose what I was going to do for sixth form, I
Yeah.
initially started in the art section to do law. I was doing
Mm.
French, economics, and literature. But
Wow.
then after 3 months of that, I missed the challenges of doing the sciences. So I switched back
Yes.
to the sciences. But I think I'm a natural, I love art. I love that sort of
Mhm.
thing. And I think that's just my natural proclivity. But
Yes.
the sciences, I love the challenge of the sciences. So I ended up doing medicine. But
You
do you
are
know
so
what's
balanced.
interesting is
Yes.
even though I did okay medicine,
Yes.
the social sciences still drew me. So I specialized
Mhm.
in socio-medical sciences when I did public health. So the
Mm.
social determinants of diseases,
Yes.
I focused on. So I went kind of all the way right back again to the
Oh my
social sciences.
goodness. That
Yeah.
is
I
so
love
cool. I'm
that.
here thinking of how you're activating like both sides of your brain. Like I definitely need that activation because I'm definitely like one-sided, you know? But then when you
Yeah.
talk about like the socio-medical piece, it kind of brings me right back to like the friendship and the social circles and the importance of that too.
It's so
Like social
important.
determinants of health. Yeah. And so
Yes.
what made you decide to take that route? So you had the interest in art, you had the interest in the medical piece and law as well. So what made you say like this is it? And like how did you navigate that from a wellness perspective? Because you were so young.
I stumbled upon public health. I actually had spent about 6 years in obstetrics and gynecology, practicing in
Mm.
obstetrics and gynecology. And I was 7 months pregnant and still operating. And I
Wow.
had a
Wow.
difficult surgery one night. And after I finished the surgery, I was getting like false contractions myself.
Mm.
And unfortunately, the head of department was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I was speaking to her, I was asking her about the possibility of me not doing calls anymore and
Yeah.
just doing clinics because it was becoming a bit too much. I mean, I'm 7 months pregnant.
Right.
And unfortunately, she didn't see that as something that she was willing to support. She said, no, you have to work just the same as everybody else. I mean,
Oh
it's
my
hard to believe it,
goodness.
right?
Yes.
So I thought to myself, am I willing to risk this pregnancy? And I knew I
Right.
wasn't. And so I was looking for something that would allow me to just work, 8 to 4 and then
Mm-hmm.
be home. And the only place where there was a vacancy was what we called the GUM clinic, which was the sexually transmitted infections diseases clinic.
Ah,
And
yeah.
so I ended up going there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was patients with HIV. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people were trying to avoid that place. And
Mm-hmm.
then I fell in love with it. Saw so much need. And what was interesting is that you'd see the same patients over and over again. You tell them to use a condom and
Mm-hmm.
they come back and you realize they didn't use a condom. And
Right.
then you realize, well, there's something wrong with the way we're practicing medicine
Mm-hmm.
because it's not that they don't know. We're
Right.
giving them free condoms, but they still
Mhm.
didn't have the agency to use it. And
Right.
then you realized that your medical expertise, what you learned in clinical medicine wasn't enough to help you deal with the
Mm-hmm.
social issues. Because what I later understood better was that even though a woman may know she needs to use a condom to protect herself, she didn't have the power to insist on it, especially if he's the one who's paying the bills, feeding
Right.
her, whatever. I had a classic case of a woman who her husband had left her. She had a 6-month-old baby and a child who was supposed to start school.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband was a minibus driver. So she spoke to another minibus driver, asking him, please talk to my husband, tell him, that my daughter's supposed to start school. I don't have money to buy her uniforms and so on. And the gentleman that he said, okay, I'll do it, but you have to sleep with me first.
Wow.
And she
Mm.
was so
Oh.
desperate, but she did ask him to use a condom. She had the
Mm-hmm.
presence of mind to ask him to use a condom, but he
Yes.
refused. But
Mhm.
what she didn't know is that she had gonorrhea. Now, sometimes you can have gonorrhea, which is they call it leak on the road in Guyana. I don't know what it's called over there. But
Mm-hmm.
a woman can have it and not know she has it. With
Wow.
men, it's usually a florid, discharge. They know it. But a woman can have it and not know it. And probably her husband may have given it to her and she didn't know.
Mm.
So he turns up with this problem. She's there and he's being very abusive to her. And I'm like, but she didn't rape you. And in fact, she asked you
Right.
to use protection and you
Mhm.
Right.
refused to do it. But when he was leaving, she turned to him and said, are you still gonna help me with that thing? And
Wow.
it
Mm.
struck me, it's like, hold on, this man has been so rude to you.
Right.
Why would you even turn to him to ask him for a thing? So it turns out he had promised to help her buy the school uniform things for her daughter if he slept with her.
Mm.
And she still needed the things. So she
Right.
was still, even though he was being so abusive, she still asked him, are you still going to help me? And
Wow.
that struck me. I thought no woman should be in a position
Situation
where
like
she's
that.
forced to, you know, do that sort of thing on
Yeah.
his terms just to be
Right.
able to
Yeah.
take care of her kids. So
Yeah.
needless to say, long story short, it's been long already. I got my staff to come together with me and we raised the money and we bought
Yeah.
stuff
God
for her
bless you.
daughter to go to school. But
Mhm.
of course, that's not sustainable, You can't do that for every person in need. So
Right.
I knew that I needed to get more training to deal with the social determinants.
Yeah.
Because if the women are empowered, then
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to succumb to
Right.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I ended up doing socio-medical sciences and public health. And it really did
Wow.
pay off because I was really able to use it and use it well in my
Yeah.
practice.
Thank
Oh.
you so much for sharing the story because as I
Mhm.
was listening to you talk, and so many of us have had times in our lives where things didn't work out. So you're in this career, you're doing what you want, but you're starting a family and you're told, like, no, I'm not giving you any breaks just because you're pregnant. So I'm sure that was not what you expected. But in that challenge, you found
Woman.
yourself in this new space,
Yeah.
in this unlikely space, but you're in a space, but you identified some of the needs and then set out to improve it. And that's what it's all about. And I heard that and I was like, this is the message that we need to put out, because number one, you overcame a challenge and you didn't just go somewhere just to sit, but you went somewhere to make it better. And
Yeah.
then that led you to the next stop along your journey. So kudos. What a story.
Absolutely. Yes.
You
Thank
know, sometimes I think God directs your path.
you.
It's sometimes, and sometimes you have to be kicked out of where you're
Yes,
comfortable.
for
Yeah.
I was
sure.
comfortable. I loved obstetrics and gynecology, and that's what I wanted to specialize in. I thought I would have.
Mhm.
But when I went to work with people with HIV and recognized there was so much need, and the fact that they were almost like the forgotten people, because nobody wanted to
Mhm.
work with them. This is way back, we're talking about um mid early 90s. All
Yeah.
right.
Oh
And
yeah. Yep. There was so
initially
much
we didn't even
stigma.
have treatment. There was so much
Right.
stigma. And
Hmm.
so I knew, I think again, it was probably a calling that I needed to do something about it and provide that care and not make them feel, you know what? So part of my history, I think, also prepared me for that, because I was
Mhm.
born in England, in Harrow, Middlesex. So not even the part of England that has a lot more people of color, but
Yeah.
I was in a more of the kind of affluent part, Middlesex.
Mhm.
And so I was always like the only person of color in my class, the only. So I knew what it was like to be treated and seen as other.
Right.
And
Right.
so I didn't have to go to stigma and discrimination training, which a lot of doctors and so on have to do to be able to relate to
Right.
people, you know, with HIV.
Understand.
I just automatically, my heart went out to them and I
Mm.
wanted to do something to help. You know, it was just, I guess, a natural calling.
Mhm.
So, yeah, sometimes life has a way of pushing you in the direction that you need to go to.
Yes. Yeah.
Amen to that.
Just such a testimony that sometimes when we're going through things, we may not quite understand or maybe
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
with our upbringing, but it really leads us, right? Especially if we listen to that calling, it leads us to where we are best able to serve. Just such
Hey
a
sis, have you been looking for an opportunity to just get away, to just be, to reset your nervous system, to step away from the noise, from the overwhelm? Join me this fall in Panama City, Panama. I will be hosting small groups of women, no more than 3 at a time, to come through and just be. Contact me at unstuck@drsherlondaadkins.com for more information.
So, what is your personal ritual for staying mentally, emotionally, and spiritually well as you care for others in this way?
So finding that balance is so important. And I wish I knew that earlier.
Mhm.
I think it got to the point where I actually had gotten to the point where I felt so drained.
Mhm.
Um, because you're giving and giving, that you're giving all day long. And then I found that, you know, my friends, the culture that we're living in. So that's the other thing. So in this culture, and I think most of the Caribbean has this very similar culture where um very patriarchal.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and it's almost considered normal for, let's say, men to have several partners all at the same time.
Mhm.
And women struggle with it. And so I found every evening I'd be on the phone. In fact, my husband used to call me Helen Haynes. Helen Haynes is someone who has a column in the newspaper where she'd be
Yes.
answering questions and giving
Yes.
people recommendations or counseling or whatever. So
Yes.
I would be every night talking to some friends who have
Mm.
husband problems or this problem and trying to be a listening ear or advise or physically be out there helping them do what they have to do.
Yes.
But then I found eventually, if you're not pouring back into
Support.
yourself,
Yes.
Mm.
all right. So I got to that point where I really felt totally depleted. And I do remember praying about this and asking God, one, to find me some friends who can pour back into me.
Hmm.
And two, I think what was beautiful was that in my journey, my own life's journey, I had reached the point where I had to start all over again. And myself and an architect designed my home. And in doing so, I was able to design a place that I call it my palace and my place of
I
peace.
love that.
My home is
Mm.
my place of peace. When I come into the doors of my home, it's like
Exhale.
And I think it's very important that your home is your place of peace where you can restore and replenish. So
Mhm.
that's the first place, having a place. And it doesn't have to be a whole home. It could be just a room
Right.
that, that is filled with things that you love and
Yeah.
that make you feel, calm.
Yeah.
Um, Other things that I do to calm me and make me feel at peace would be things like cooking. I like to cook different dishes, exotic dishes. I love to eat
Ooh.
exotic food.
Note to
Um,
self, go to Dr. K's.
no, 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 no. Let me add caveat. I like to cook when I feel like
Feel
cooking.
like it. Okay.
It
All right.
mustn't
Note
be
to self, check in with Dr. K first.
not an everyday. Check and see, right? It mustn't be an everyday thing that I have
Right.
to do. But when I'm in the mood for cooking, I really can enjoy it. I love to entertain. And I think balance is the key, especially in the medical field, you can really end up being overworked. And then to find the time for the children and, it could be a real balancing act. So
Yeah.
I think listening to your body, you
Mhm.
know, having adequate rest.
Yes.
Like I said, I love to dance, but
Mm.
doing things that you enjoy, dance or singing,
Yeah.
um, exercising is very important. And one that we tend to overlook, I know I certainly did, was drinking enough water.
Yes. Yes.
Drinking
Skin needs
enough water, staying
alignment.
hydrated so you can wash out all those toxins and all those things that, just to keep your body healthy. So those I think would be my key recommendations
Yeah.
and social connections. So
Mm.
like I said, having friends who are in need is one thing, but you must have the friends that who can also build you up
Yeah.
and who you can turn to if and when you need support or, just to hang out. But there's people who help build you back up.
Yeah.
And I think I did not pay enough attention to that at one point in my life. Happily now I've never had many friends,
Mm-hmm.
but a few really good ones.
Quality. Yeah.
And
And
I
how
think
can you
that's
tell?
very
So can you
important.
help us with that? Because I think that's a struggle that a lot of us have is it's not the absence of people around us, but the people who can pour back into us. So it sounds like you were very intentional about finding community that could do that for you, that which you were doing for other people.
Yeah.
How did you do that? Like, what advice would you give to help people who are on that journey right now and looking for that tribe?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a woman of faith. All
Mm-hmm.
right. And as I mentioned, when I realized that I was just so exhausted and depleted from just giving and giving, I'm a giver.
Mm-hmm.
But then you must listen to your body.
Yeah.
And when I recognize that I am just tired and I need to have friends who, can pour into me, I prayed about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I kid you not, it was a matter of months
Wow.
that and this is a friend, it was a friend who I wasn't close to before,
Mm-hmm.
but for some reason she just reached out to me and she had all the experience and expertise that I needed at the time in my life when I was building, because she had built a house not so many years before. And so she was able to connect me to a good contractor. She was able to take me, we went to America together to buy the windows. And, so she was a fantastic connection. She was exactly what I prayed for and needed at the time.
Yeah.
And it was somebody I had known casually for years, but she just reached out to me at that time. And
Wow.
through her, I've met other people. Likewise, Rotary has been a wonderful organization where you find like-minded people as well. People who want to give back to society, people who are kind, givers. So Rotary has also I found a family in Rotary. My church, um, I was in the women's ministry. Um, Within the women's ministry, there's always an older, wiser woman who can pray with you if you want to have prayer, who would share with you her own little story that can encourage you and so on. So I would have to also add, that just being part of organizations such as those, my church, my Rotary, and like I said, some of my friends from way back when, high school,
Yes.
I mean, one particular friend, we went to high school together, then we went to Russia together.
Wow.
She now lives in Ghana, but
Oh,
any opportunity we can get to connect, we
yeah.
do that. I've been to Ghana twice.
Yeah.
Um, and whenever she can, she comes down to Guyana. Those old friendships that were built on just pure, you know,
That's so true. The innocence of it, right? Before the title, before
exactly.
the expertise and the
You
status you
love
had.
them.
That's so
Exactly.
true.
You have a genuine love for those friends from school days.
Hmm.
So whenever we can connect, we do. And I really cherish those sort of connections. And I think for women, it's so important to have other women that can support you and be there for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so important.
So
So, Dr. Karen, I get so excited when I talk to women who are brilliant and that, women who don't keep their brilliance to themselves, that walk into a space and automatically you can start figuring out how to improve it, how to connect resources. And with that, though, how do you set boundaries? Like, what do you do to make sure that you're not overextending yourself? You mentioned that you're a giver, and so givers sometimes can give and give and give. What type of boundaries have you erected, and how was it when you first started implementing those boundaries? From how did you feel?
The first thing I think most important thing is to listen to your body. And you know when you've overextended yourself. The next thing is it's sometimes difficult to pull back, especially when persons around you are used to having full access and are used to you giving and giving and giving. All of a sudden, when you're not so available, um, they take note and sometimes they can be offended. But I think when you recognize that it's a matter of your own well-being and health that you need to
Yes.
set boundaries, then you have to follow through and be firm. Be kind, but be firm. And so there are a few persons who would have obviously recognized that I'm not as available as I used to be. I don't call as often as I used to, et cetera, et cetera. And I think they've recognized that maybe there's something that made me feel like I needed to do this.
Mhm.
Um, I can't say that I sat down and gave an explanation and said, "Hey, I think I've given too much."
Right.
It was more a question of me just doing what I needed to do for me. And
Right.
Hmm.
it's not that I'm not accessible, I am. And it's not that I don't give anymore, I do. But it's now done it with measure. And
Yeah.
it's done
Yes.
in a way that I feel safe and
Mhm.
I'm not overextending myself. So I'm more aware now of limits. I don't think I was aware enough of the importance of limits. And as I said before, if you're giving, you must replenish. There must be a source that you can go to replenish. And when I'm saying giving, it's not just physical things. It's your time, it's your emotion, it's
Hmm.
people dumping on you their stresses, their worries.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the kind of job I had, like I mentioned, dealing with a clinic like that where you have to give a diagnosis that back then could have been, you know,
Yeah.
it took a toll. And so you
Hmm.
have to be aware of your own emotional health, your own vulnerabilities, and how you're going to cope with them. So yeah, listening to your body and recognizing when you're getting to the limit and being taking care of you.
Yeah.
It's not being selfish, but
No.
unless you do that, you won't have anything left to give. So it's just making sure you always have a source.
Mm.
Yes. And what does it look like on the other side? So now you're comfortable with stating those boundaries, and
Yeah.
what's life like now?
It's just beautiful and peaceful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful and peaceful. I don't get half as many phone calls, which is all right
Right.
because I'm like I said, most of them were people
Mhm.
depressed, having issues. So those calls have almost become silent.
Mhm.
And now it's more a question of me choosing a call or reaching out to a friend and having a light and a beautiful conversation, planning
Yeah,
a
so
good trip.
refreshing.
Yes, it's just, and I suspect maybe I've also reached another phase in my life. I'm a much older person now, and my friends are also older, and so we're all going through different things now.
Mm.
So balance is so important. You're gonna have some friends who will need you and you need to be there for them. I get that. But then you must also have the other friends who are there for you.
Yeah, I love.
Amen.
We asked, what perspective do you bring as an Afro-diasporic woman doctor that is often unheard? And you said, hmm, the Guyana experience as a young female doctor working in depressed communities with patients living with HIV. I thought that was so profound. Can you expand on what you meant by that?
Well, I guess the experience that I'm referring to is the fact that many patients that I had to deal with, so I was working in the public sector. So you're dealing with a lot of poorer people. And as I mentioned earlier, part of really taking care of someone is, okay, maybe you're writing a prescription, but you also have to spend time teaching them. And you can teach until you're blue in the face, but if they don't have the agency to be able to eat properly or shelter over their, if they don't have some of those social things in place, then they may still not be able to take their meds on time because they're so distracted with so many other things. And so one of the things that I was able to do, there was a period of time when I was working for USAID, PEPFAR, and we had a lot of funding coming into Guyana. So we were able to develop programs that empowered, and my focus was on women, empowered women. So, and this was from that story that I mentioned to you earlier. There was another story of two girls who drowned, two beautiful girls that again, I don't believe in coincidence. I was visiting one of the NGOs that we were funding, and I met these two beautiful girls in another part of Guyana. But the family was being evicted because the landlord found out that the parents had HIV. And it really struck me. Went home, minded my own business. 1 week after, I'm reading the papers about two girls who drowned.
Mm,
Heard from the NGO, it was the same two girls that I had met just the week before. And
goodness.
I'm like, it couldn't be. Turns out they were evicted, had to stay at another place where they were getting shelter, but they had to go to the water side, the river side to bathe. And the little one fell in and the big one jumped in after, and they both ended up drowning.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, there must be a reason why I met these girls. And I'm not going to allow that death to go for nothing.
Yeah.
So I said, we got to do housing. We have to build houses for people so they don't have to, be evicted because someone found out that they had HIV. So we were able to get Habitat for Humanity, Food for the Poor to come together and design a hybrid house. Women with HIV, we got their older boys. So if you had a son who was a teenager, young in the 20s, we brought them on board. Habitat for Humanity taught them masonry, carpentry, and we built houses. We
Yeah.
got the Ministry of Housing to give us 5 house lots every year. I
Wow.
brought together different people from different places
Yeah.
and we built the houses and the women got a turnkey. How did we choose who gets the house? We had to do a
Right.
lottery system. We had to do a lottery system. But the
Yeah.
point is, I felt this is my way of
Remember.
making sure though that their death wasn't for nothing.
Yeah.
And that went on even after the USAID funding had ended. The government of Ghana did it for a number of years afterwards.
Mhm.
And so at least it's a way of showing that if a woman has at least secure housing, they were able to link adherence to medication
Mhm.
to having stable housing and
Yeah.
food and so on. And so this was one way that we were able to justify doing this.
Mhm.
So yes, the social determinants of health
Yes.
require us looking beyond taking the
Right.
medication, but what will
Yes.
enable you to do that?
Right.
Stable housing is one. Having food to eat is another. So empowering women, we did job training. I was able to reach out to women with women-owned businesses
Mhm.
for them to get apprenticeships.
Yes.
And that went fabulously. So a lot of women got some skills in jewelry making, upholstery,
Yeah.
and some of them were actually employed after they finished the training.
That is
We saved for them. So we gave them a stipend while they were being trained, but we kept back. Let's say the stipend was 4,000, this is Ghana dollars. Let's say it was 4,000 Ghana dollars a day. We would keep $500 and save it for them. At
mm,
the end of the training, they got a lump sum of money that they were now able to use to invest in a business or whatever it is that they wanted to do. And so it was amazing. And I look back at those years and I'm really proud of them because we made a difference, and we were able to show how those looking at the social needs could
Mm-hmm.
help empower.
Yeah.
And then a woman doesn't have to do the things that I mentioned before, just
Right.
to be able to put a roof over her head or provide uniforms for her children.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh my goodness, you
Oh,
are amazing. You said the program was amazing, but you are amazing. And I'm like a
Oh, thank you.
crybaby for the
Oh,
audience.
please.
Y'all, I'm here like
Don't.
trying to hold back tears, because I
yeah,
think
these stories are so
yes.
touching.
This is the beauty of going forward in our education and
Mhm.
Yeah.
having our degrees isn't just for the title, but it's the heart and the compassion and what we are able to how we're able to utilize that with influence and education and awareness to be able to help other people.
Help
And
other
so I
people.
listen to you and I'm just like, yes, this is what it's all about. So thank you so much for being you and for having the heart and the compassion and for your voice and the advocacy. And because of that, those girls will forever be remembered and honored in a beautiful way that will continue to support other women.
That tells me you don't run away from challenges
Right?
because when you're young in any workspace, any industry that you're working in, and when you're the young one, you have to take a lot. You have to prove yourself. You have to have this emotional intelligence. Back then nobody was talking about emotional intelligence, but it was something you had to have. And then being a female of color, and then of course becoming a doctor, not everyone can do that. That's rigorous curriculum, that's long nights, early mornings, and then not just any community, but a community where you're dealing with mental health
Yeah.
on top of you have the physical diagnosis, and then you're also dealing with mental health. So it just speaks volumes
Hmm.
to who you are as a person. And you mentioned earlier, like callings, the fabric of your being was put together specifically for you to do this type of work because everyone would not be able to do it. So again, it's just
And
like thank you, just thank you
yeah,
for the work that you're doing, not just in your community, because remember, when we do one thing we never know the impact, but the impact is
yeah,
infinite, so it goes out
yeah.
beyond where you are. Just amazing.
So with Rotary, it was through Rotary that I organized the Men's Wellness Conference.
Mm.
And it came out of a challenge from our district governor, who said, hey, you all keep talking about domestic violence, domestic violence, domestic violence, but all you're doing is working with the women. If the men are the problem, why
Right.
aren't you working with the men?
Yeah.
And I listened to him and I thought, brilliant.
Hmm.
Why haven't we?
Yeah.
So we went about partnering with a hospital that we have here, and a men's group that I found, and we made it happen. And it was an amazing experience. So we brought men from all walks of life together for one day. And we had doctors, male doctors. We tried to ensure that everybody was male, except for myself and Carlotta. And
Mhm.
we were speaking about mental health and domestic violence, but I was playing snippets of videos from the diaspora, from America,
Mhm.
sorry. And it was men who had been to prison, etc., who
Mm.
perpetrators of domestic violence and their perspective, having been through therapy, etc., etc. But
Yeah.
what we did is we had the men form groups and discuss those videos and what they felt could be done in the Guyana scenario, and
Yeah.
have them come back and tell us what did they think they needed, what
Mm.
sort of support or help did they need
Yeah.
to, so we wanted to hear the men's perspective, and it was amazing. The feedback we got, the men were so grateful because they said, it's never happened before. It's
Right.
always the
Really ask
women,
their
but
opinion
for
of
them to be able to combat, and we didn't just focus on domestic violence, but we taught them about prostate cancer. We spoke about men's health
yeah.
and the need to access health. So in addition to having the sessions with them,
Yeah.
outside of that room, we actually had like a clinic. So we had persons taking off blood samples right there and then for
Yeah.
them to get all the different tests that they wanted. Was being done outside free of cost because
Wow.
of the partnership we did with the hospital. So they got their testing and so on done. And we spoke about the importance of men accessing healthcare
Mm.
because they have very poor health-seeking behaviors. I think it's the same thing in America, but in Guyana, unless a man is half dead, he's not going to the
Right.
hospital. It's that macho thing.
Right.
And so we were trying to break down those things and letting them know that the importance of them taking care of themselves. If they're going to be head of the household, you have to be around, right?
Right.
So it was letting them know that we care about them, and that going to the hospital on an annual basis for your checkups is not a sign of weakness, but
Right.
it's a way of being responsible as a man who has a
Mhm.
family, etc. So that's how that came about, the Men's Wellness Symposium. But really, the root of it is I'm trying to help women.
Right.
But if I
Right.
recognize the men are the problem, I can't just
Yes.
ignore them.
Yes.
right? And as we're working with the men, right now we're in the process of refurbishing the shelter for, they call it the shelter for battered women, and I really hate that name.
Yeah.
I want it to be eventually called the home for survivors,
Yeah.
because they are surviving. But it's called a shelter now, and it really is a shelter. But what we want to do, when I'm finished with it, it must be like a home. Because as I said
And it will
before, your
be.
home needs to be a place where you can heal
Your
and where
palace.
you can replenish, your place of peace. And I'm thinking, if you go there because you've been battered on all fronts, mentally, psychologically, physically, you need a place where you can heal. And if you're in a place that's not uplifting, how can that happen?
A woman of color is just so amazing. I just love us. Because you're not only taking care of the women, honey, you're taking care of the men too. That's just what we
Yes.
And so thank you so much, girlfriend, for just having this whole wraparound, comprehensive, perspective around healing for community, and for using your gifts and employing them to just support others and doing this very important work. So how, people are gonna be looking at this like, how do we reach this phenomenal woman? Now listen, y'all, she has boundaries. Okay, she's taking care of her wellness. You can't be reaching out all the time. Boundaries, okay? So for people who do want to engage with your work, how can they reach? And
Right. So I am not into clinical practice these days.
Yeah.
I am a full-time lecturer. I'm at the University of Guyana. But I'm the founder of a clinic. So it's called Eureka Medical Laboratories and Clinic. So there are doctors there, beautiful doctors, where, anybody who needs to be seen can go and be well taken care of. But I myself am not there now. I focus a lot more on, like I said, giving back. So
we love you for that. We support all that you're doing. So please do keep us posted on how we can support as well. And this is another amazing episode. Thank you so much, Dr. Karen, for your time, for all that you do.
Thank you. Yes. It's been amazing. Thank you guys so much.
I categorize relationships in 3 C's. Constituents, comrades, and confidants. And based on where I place you, that's the currency I am going to interact and engage with. Right? I think far too long there's been this perceived belief that as Black presenting women that we are aggressive and cold and hard, and we don't know how to necessarily navigate relationships in a way that is feminine. There's been so much conversation around who we are not, that we've forgotten who we are, right? So femininity is strength. It's being able to protect my family, not necessarily with blows and fighting, right? But with my empowerment, with my beliefs, with my consistency, with my structure.
As we're listening, I'm just really enjoying like your chill vibe. And I know that doesn't just come from someone who has no boundaries. So you have some type of system in place. I can just feel it. So please share that with us.
Yes.
So in the time we spent, you'll realize that I always start with self. So I start with boundaries with myself. I don't think about boundaries enforcing it with anybody else unless I have enforced it with myself.